You won't believe how fast a dream can turn into a nightmare. One lap, and Gabriel Bortoleto's home Grand Prix at Interlagos fell apart in front of everyone. Stick with me, because this isn't just about a crash. It's about how a weekend unravels, how small moments stack into chaos, and how the people involved reacted in ways nobody expected. The crowd barely had time to breathe when the whole thing went south. Gabriel came to São Paulo with huge expectations. The home fans behind him, solid pace in the sprint, momentum. In the short race, he was fighting for points and looked comfortable in the Sauber. But then, in a tussle with Alexander Albon, he ended up hitting the barrier on his own. Car destroyed, qualifying ruined, mechanics working through the night, trying to rebuild something that in the end was beyond repair. It was the kind of damage that changes the weekend. Sunday began like a reset. With Max Verstappen and Stefano coming in from the boxes, Bortoleto inherited a position and attacked. Aggressive moves, passing Franco Colapinto and even Lewis Hamilton in the opening meters. The stadium exploded. Everyone thought Interlagos would witness a fairy tale comeback. It lasted seconds. In a battle for position with Lance Stroll coming out of turn 9, there was contact. The Sauber hit the wall, and Gabriel's Brazilian Grand Prix ended before it had really begun. What shocked most was his reaction in the press conference afterward. People expected an outburst, a finger pointed at the Aston Martin driver. Instead, Gabriel defended Stroll. He said it was a racing incident. Sure, Stroll could have given him more room, he admitted, but he didn't believe it was intentional. That stance threw a curveball at the usual post-crash drama. The kid took responsibility and cooled the heat. But Gabriel also hinted that the roots of the trouble went back to earlier in the weekend. That raised eyebrows and suggested the bigger issue might have been how Sauber handled the sprint damage repair. Small errors in repair, setup compromises, or rushed decisions after an earlier impact can come back to bite. Meanwhile, in the same weekend, the fallout from another on-track clash spiraled into something much larger. Oscar Piastri got involved in a collision with Kim Antonelli during the São Paulo GP. It started early. Right after the safety car restart, Piastri, pushing to make a move on the young Antonelli, locked a front wheel and made contact. That chain reaction took Charles Leclerc out and ignited the paddock. The FIA acted quickly. 10 seconds penalty for Piastri. That, on its own, would have been normal. But then the FIA added 2 penalty points onto his license, taking him to 8 points in the last 12 months. McLaren were furious behind the scenes. Officially, the FIA's rationale referenced the driving standards. Piastri's front axle wasn't alongside Antonelli's mirror at the apex, meaning he wasn't entitled to the racing room for the corner. But McLaren argued the opposite. They claimed Piastri was on the line and had actually braked to try to avoid contact, a mitigating action that should have counted. The impression among McLaren engineers and strategists was that the FIA ignored that avoidance attempt. Which brings up the larger controversy. Is the FIA applying consistent criteria? While Piastri was penalized harshly, other recent incidents that looked more aggressive drew only warnings. The sense around the paddock was that McLaren's aggressive presence at the front had turned any touch into a test case. If an orange car nudges someone, suddenly enforcement follows. And to make it stranger, the FIA applied a heavy time penalty, but only 2 license points, when 3 would have fit the recent pattern for clear-cut culpability. It made the whole decision feel inconsistent and confusing. To many, it looked like the FIA was trying to show toughness, but wound up contradicting itself. That contact with Antonelli was textbook Interlagos chaos, 3 cars fighting a tight, blind corner. Yet the biggest casualty ended up being Leclerc, eliminated from the race. In an instant, the narrative shifted from pure racing incident to a mess of blame, regulation interpretation, and political noise. And the noise didn't stop there. Carlos Sainz revealed after the race that a first-lap touch, yes, involving Lewis Hamilton, had damaged his front wing badly and ruined his race strategy. Sainz's comment caught people off guard and brought tensions between drivers into public view. He said bluntly he'd been squeezed by Lewis and that the damage compromised everything: balance, pace, and ultimately the pit stop plan. Williams, which has been trying to rebuild steadily, split internally on Sainz's claim. Some within the team saw the contact as an unavoidable byproduct of a chaotic start. Others were emphatic. Hamilton was overly aggressive. Sainz explained that the damaged front wing decimated his performance lap after lap. The slow pit stop didn't help. What should have been an undercut attempt became a damage control exercise. They were running around P11, P12 trying to survive with a bruised car. Sainz believed without the hit and the slow stop, the team would have grabbed points. Remember too that Sainz had been battling illness earlier in the weekend, missing media sessions, and only feeling 100% by Sunday. And then, this hit blew up his chance to make the most of that regained strength. The human side of the story matters. The guy shows up sick, comes back, and then is derailed on lap 1. That frustration was loud and real. Back to the Ferrari box, the atmosphere there was boiling. Internally, the team was said to have sharply reprimanded Charles Leclerc for a maneuver they judged reckless. During the start, Leclerc ran wide across turns 1 and 2, left the track and rejoined ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Yet Hamilton received a 10-second penalty for a much smaller infraction earlier, and Leclerc walked away unpunished and finished second. Ex-analysts and former drivers called the inconsistency glaring. Some pundits openly said Leclerc should have been penalized much more harshly. Journalist Ewan Gale declared Leclerc was the one more deserving of punishment, and others like Brandon Stone went even further. What Leclerc did was worse than Hamilton, Stone said. If the FIA doesn't act now, everyone will try it next time. Inside Ferrari, however, leadership reportedly did not ignore the move. Frédéric Vasseur and the technical leadership reportedly considered Leclerc's action irresponsible, especially at a time when the team desperately needs stability and consistent decision-making. One senior engineer allegedly labeled the incident an avoidable disaster that could easily have cost much more had the stewards chosen differently. Lewis Hamilton's own weekend descended into one of the angriest public outbursts we've seen since he joined Ferrari. After receiving a 5-second penalty for contact with Franco Colapinto, a call he considered nonsensical, Hamilton exploded over the team radio. "These guys are a joke. A complete joke." He was visibly fed up, and rightfully so in his view. His car had no rhythm, the rear was unstable, and he warned over the radio that he could hit the wall at any moment. When the penalty hit, it was salt in the wound. Hamilton's complaint was raw. "My car moved into me. I just made contact and they punished me. Ridiculous." He and other drivers have been vocal over the last few events about the FIA's lack of consistency. Some incidents drew harsh sanctions, others were waved away, and Hamilton's ire boiled over both in the Mexico GP and again here in Brazil. The mood in the Ferrari garage was defeat and frustration. Eliminated in Q2, hampered by a Leclerc spin in the sprint that ruined his lap, and then followed by what he saw as an absurd penalty that ruined what might have been a points haul. Off the radio and out in the open, Hamilton's "these guys are a joke" line became the headline, and the echo of that frustration will last. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about a 5-second penalty or a botched restart. It's about power, perceived favoritism, and the sense that the sport's rulebook is being applied with shifting standards. For Ferrari, the nightmare is more than bad luck. Their new star isn't being protected by results. The car still has flaws, and the internal pressure is piling up. So what did Interlagos give us? A collage of drama, a home favorite crushed in a single lap, a young driver showing unexpected class by not pointing the finger, a heavyweight team furious at inconsistent stewarding, a veteran like Sainz robbed of a comeback, and Hamilton publicly losing patience with the sport's governance. The GP of São Paulo was chaotic on track, but the real story is the way these incidents ripple through teams, contracts, and careers. Every touch, every radio message, every steward's call feeds a larger narrative. This sport is razor thin at the top, and one small moment can wreck a whole weekend. If you followed Interlagos closely, you saw more than crashing metal. You saw trust tested, team cohesion stressed, and the fragile balance between driver instinct and the rulebook exposed. The season is still running, and these weekends matter. The question left in the air is brutal but simple. Can the teams and the FIA find consistency before emotions and careers suffer real damage? Because when stars like Hamilton and Leclerc are part of the story, anything that looks like double standards won't be forgiven quietly. Tell me what you think. Was the steward's decision fair? Did Gabriel handle himself like a pro, or was he too mild? And do you believe the FIA is applying the rules equally across the grid? Or are politics and perception shaping outcomes more than we admit?